Hello world, it's Siraj, and I've built an AI yoga instructor. Her name is Amy, and she lives in this app that I built in Flutter. And Flutter allows me to build an app for both iOS and Android in the same code base, which is incredible. Let me show you a quick demo first. So I'll log in with my username and password, and once I've logged in, this is my dashboard. She's going to show me my current level of at which stage in the journey of yoga I'm at. And once I have logged in and assume that I've paid as well, you have to pay $100 a month to use this on-demand automated yoga instruction service, and assume that I've paid. Once I've paid, and by the way, I've integrated not just Stripe, but Razor Pay as well. So India, you guys are involved in this as well. We want to go global with this. As soon as you have paid, then you can begin this service. Now, I just want to say I'm using my webcam, so I can't show my full body here, but I just want to show you the pose detection that's happening right now. It's going to be kind of cramped, but let's start a demo right here. So as you can see, it is detecting my pose, and so this is the warrior pose. And once she detects my pose, she's going to tell me to hold that pose for a little bit. And once I've held that pose for a little bit, after a while, she will tell me to go into the next pose. And so she's looking at which pose I'm doing, and then she's matching that with what she understands about yoga, which I've trained over time. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So let's X out of this. All right, back to the dashboard. Now, you might be thinking, well, why don't you just build a business out of this? Why are you showing us how to do it? Why do you have the code for what you built in the video description for everybody to see? Because it's more impactful for me, I believe, to give you the building blocks, to show you, to give you the path on how to gain financial freedom. That means you don't work for anybody else. You work for yourself, either as a freelancer or you start your startup. And the reason I'm saying this so strongly at the beginning of the video is because anybody can become rich using this technology. Anybody can build wealth by taking this internet technology and this laptop computer wherever you are in the world. And in the age of infinite leverage, if you make the proper decisions in terms of how to architect an app, how to design the app, how to perform business development to get your first clients, you can build a sustainable business no matter where you are in the world, and you can gain financial freedom by making your life better and the lives of others. So it's a win-win-win situation. I want you to gain financial freedom, and that's why I am not just showing you all the possibilities of AI in healthcare. I am showing you a practical example, and I'm going to show you from start to finish. That's my promise in this video. I'm going to show you from start to finish how exactly I built this, and make sure that you understand every step of the way so you can either take this code and turn it into a profitable business. I will rejoice in your success. Or you have a different but related idea and you can start working on that. So let's be very clear about what this video is about. There are 3 learning objectives in this video. The first is how to create a simple Flutter app. Okay, Flutter is awesome. It was just released a few months ago, and with one code base, I had to learn the Dart programming language. With one code base, you can build an app for both iOS and Android. That's super cool. That's the first. The second is I'm going to show you how a PoseNet model is able to detect poses, what the demo you just saw was. And lastly, I will show you how to perform transfer learning. This is a hot word in the community these days because it's so popular, especially in computer vision. And I'll show you exactly how to do that, to take an existing convolutional network and train it to detect yoga poses. Those are the 3 learning objectives, all right? In addition to everything else, but those are the 3 main ones that I'm gonna leave you with by the end of this video. That's my promise to you. So don't go anywhere. I'm also gonna wrap in this video. I've got some memes. We're taking this education stuff to the next level. I am just getting started. All right, so let's get started with this. What are the tools that I used to build this? Well, first of all, I used Flutter, right? And so Flutter allows you to make an app for iOS and Android, and kind of web as well, which is insane. But there's still, that part is really buggy. So we're not gonna look at that web part. We're just gonna focus on the iOS and Android part, okay? I also used Firebase, which is a Google service, to store that data in the cloud. User ID, what is my yoga score? Different things like that, social features. I'm using Stripe for payments in the West, and I'm using Razor Pay for payments in India. It is really, really sad that there is not a global payments service yet. It's just insane. And that's why cryptocurrency is amazing. It's insane how much Bitcoin is rallying right now. I'm seeing the pulse of crypto rise these days. So I'm going to keep an eye on that. So don't worry. All right, so what else did I use? I used TensorFlow Lite to take this giant PoseNet model and compress it into something that could fit on a mobile device. Very light on-device inference, amazing stuff. I used the PoseNet model, as you're seeing these guys here, super cool stuff. This is called multi-pose detection. And I used an image data set of different yoga poses to perform transfer learning with an existing model. I'm going to show you how all that works. And then one more thing that I used was a text-to-speech system to give the assistant a voice. Okay, so there are a lot of opportunities in the healthcare space, specifically using AI to improve the healthcare space. I mean, this graph is from the Harvard Business Review, a very reputable magazine. 10 AI applications that could change healthcare. Look at all of these. Now, this is predicting the potential annual value by 2026. If you don't know how to code, if you have never coded in your life, and you start today, by 2026, you could have $1 billion business. Okay, or whatever currency you use by 2026. All of these markets, these sub-markets of healthcare are posed for massive growth, from fraud detection to virtual nursing assistant to preliminary diagnoses. Electronic health records are terrible. These are archaic, Windows 92-esque systems that all doctors use, and those could easily be upgraded to internet status. Find a doctor, talk to them about their problems, and create a solution using AI technology. The second idea, I'm giving you ideas. So, make sure that this is in the code, by the way. This is in the code repository, all these ideas. The second is to create some kind of new smart healthcare device. Doctors have a bunch of sensors, like what is your heartbeat? What is your galvanic response? What is your sweat? All these things. If we could create a device that learns from a stream of data in real time and adapts to the user, maybe making the bed a little more comfortable, or increasing the IV drip based on heartbeat, etc., we can free up nurses' time. And time is very valuable. And so one more thing is that the smartphone can be an incredibly powerful diagnostic tool, right? You don't always need a doctor that had 4 years of college, 4 years of medical school, and then residency, just to detect whether or not you have, some kind of skin lesion or something like that. Here's an incredible statistic. More radiologists work in the half dozen hospitals lining the renowned Longwood Avenue in Boston than in all of West Africa. This is your opportunity to create a business that has huge impact. AI in healthcare has huge impact. I am not the only person to have said this. This is a huge opportunity, okay, to serve the underserved and to make money doing it, right? This is a win-win situation. That's the kind of person we need in the world more of. And that's what I'm trying to create by creating these free tutorials. I will never charge for these tutorials. I'm just so hyped right now. I will never charge for these tutorials because it goes against my morals. I will show you how to do this. Just continue to watch and I will show you the code. I will show you everything. Now, Accenture says the same thing. All right, so you might be thinking, okay, so where do I begin, right? I have an idea, but I've never coded before. Where do I even start? There's this great website called github.com. And so if you see and all coders upload their code to this website, github.com. And coding culture, developer culture is beautiful in that we share everything. We share everything a lot of the times. And so if you have some kind of idea, let's say medical imaging or, electronic health record, databases or something, just search it on GitHub. And so in this case, I searched medical imaging and I got 1,500 results for different applications of AI or any kind of coding technology to medical imaging. These are unused tools. There is so much uncaptured value on GitHub. The reason I say they're uncaptured is because most people don't understand code and they don't understand the complexity. But if you are able to understand this complexity, you can provide society with value by paywalling this and providing a service that people can actually use. Make it easier to use than doing pip install. And that's the complexity that you're taking on by doing pip install, by installing dependencies and Dockerizing it and all these things. That is a complexity that you can take care of and then make money from. Okay? So let's get started with this app. The first step for us is to design this app. So I'm going to break out the whiteboard. Get ready for this. Okay, so here is my whiteboard. And by the way, yes, I'm sweating. I don't care. I'm here to help you learn. So ignore the sweat. Let's just keep going with this. So how are we going to design this app? Well, we know that we need a login page. So, okay, so this is the login page. Log in. And in that login page, we'll have the user and the password text field. And let's say, I want to anthropomorphize this app. Anthropomorphize means I want to make it seem like it's human. So to do that, I'm going to put a picture or a GIF of some girl or woman here who represents the yoga instructor. And let's call her Macy. Okay, so we'll have the title of the app right there. And once I have a login, two text fields for user and password, then I'm going to have a login button and a sign up button. Okay, so the sign up button, we can basically just reuse the code, that created this login page to add some more text fields for user, password, repeat your password, maybe the email, and then sign up, right? So a sign up button. And then we just go right back. So we're gonna have an arrow in both directions. So that's login, that's sign up. Okay, but assume that, I've already signed up and now I've logged in. What's the next step? Well, it's oh my God. Clearly I'm a geometrist. Okay, so what's the next page? Oh my God. I'm so hyped to teach. I am so hyped to do this. I love my job. I love this so much. Okay, here we go. The dashboard is where the stats show up. So we want to gamify this app. So we'll say this is going to be some scalar value between 0 and 10 that will store in the database that shows where you are in your yogic journey, okay? We'll also have the image of this, woman again, just to continue this train of anthropomorphization. I'll have a button to pay, and then I'll have a button to start, so begin. Now, for the pay button, I'll have some sort of like modal pop-up, for CVV, credit card code, your month, date, whatever, and then we'll go back to this. Once I begin, here is the good stuff. So first of all, I want a nav bar so I can go back. I want a nav bar, so I'll go back, so back button. Now, inside of this, that's where I want the model to be running inference. The camera is on, I will be standing here, and it will be performing inference on me. So it's gonna detect my pose. So what I'll actually do is I'm going to put this phone up against the wall, and then I'll just be by myself, and I'll be doing yoga. And so what's happening here is PoseNet is running, it's detecting my pose. Because I've retrained it on yoga poses from a yoga image data set, it's gonna be able to know what a certain pose looks like in terms of a yoga pose, right? Downward facing dog, the warrior pose, lotus position, it's gonna know. And so if it detects, any certain pose, and let's just say we have an array of poses, and so it wants certain poses in a sequential order, we'll name it 0 through 10, let's say 10 poses per session, hold each pose for some threshold, let's say 5 minutes, it's gonna detect those poses, and once it detects a certain pose, we'll have an event listener that's basically just reading in the stream of XY coordinates. And once it detects a certain pose, once that classification returns, which it's going to automatically in real time, then we'll say, okay, if pose equals, whatever value, we'll set those 10 values from the array. If pose equals X, then we'll set some counter variable like int counter equals 1. And then once that counter is 10, we'll know we're done. And then if pose equals X, then move on to the next pose, so next. And then we'll also have the text-to-speech engine, which is the Macy, will say, good job, or something, encourage the user. Now, there is a lot we can do here, and arguably this is the value of our app, right? This is the hard part right here, like combining PoseNet with this text-to-speech engine and doing so in a comfortable, gentle, yoga instructor-esque way. So we'll get to that. But this is the basic structure of the prototype. And as you can see, it's got all the parts for a business. Like, I made this in 2 days. I've never done Dart before. I made it in 2 days. And you can too, okay? It's all about the mentality. So that's what I want to show you. Here's the dashboard and here's the yoga. Let's just call this view the yoga. So dashboard, login, sign up. Those are our 4 views that we want. All right, back to, let's start coding. All right, but before we code, let me just explain what Flutter is, the architecture, and what actually it is. So Flutter contains a framework that's called Dart, and Dart is this programming language that is used to compile down to the native Objective-C language for iOS and Java for Android. Now, iOS has been around for a decade, and so has Android, right? So what we learned was, you can create an app for iOS or Android in that native code, and then that native code is going to be able to speak to that platform's events, its Bluetooth sensors, all of the, low-level stuff. But some people didn't want to learn both Java and Objective-C. So then came these cross-platform JavaScript apps like PhoneGap and Cordova. And so what happened then was you just wrote your entire app in JavaScript. That JavaScript was then compiled down to talk directly to native code. And then there was this bridge that allowed you to just write JavaScript and deploy to all these different services. The problem is that that was very slow. JavaScript is very slow for that. So what happened about 6 months ago, keep in mind, Flutter is new. What happened 6 months ago is that the team at Google working on the Chrome browser decided to create this new framework in one language for both platforms. And here is an example of Flutter right here. So the difference is that now you are writing it in this new language called Dart. It is reactive. If you've ever coded React.js in JavaScript, it's very similar. But if you haven't, don't worry about it. Basically, everything is a widget. Okay, so it heavily uses this idea of widgets. And so widgets can be anything. Widgets can be centering and padding. They can be a text field. Widgets can be a logo. They can be an image. They can even be the entire application. A widget could be even a navigation bar. Everything is a widget. Everything is a widget in Flutter, okay? And so you are writing things in Dart and it compiles down to native code for both platforms, which is incredible. And this is faster than the JavaScript-based way. Now, these widgets should be beautiful. They should be fast. They should be customizable. You should be able to modify them as you want. And so far, I found that to be the case, which is amazing. So what happens is if everything is a widget, what you're doing when you're building your app is you're actually creating a widget tree. Okay, so you have a starting widget, as you can see here, I'm now narrating what's happening here. You have a starting widget and you just go through the flow of the app widget by widget by widget, right? Each widget contains sub-widgets and those sub-widgets could contain sub-widgets. But you might be thinking, well, that seems not ideal. You know, I mean, I feel like there could be some problems there. That seems too simple. Well, it turns out it's not, actually. It's way better than Objective-C, I would say, or even Java. I really like Dart. Dart is amazing because, first of all, layout. Oh my God, if you've ever done mobile development, layout is hell. Like getting layouts to work properly across different types of Apple devices or Android devices is always a pain. The beauty of Flutter is that it just kind of takes care of layout for you. You just focus on those widgets and the widget tree, and it will take care of the rest. So how do I really get this idea into your head? I could rap about it. I think that's gonna work. So let me just quickly rap and then we'll be back to this.
I built my widget tree, making money with the Flutter. I built my widget tree. I built my widget tree. I built my widget tree, making money with the Flutter.
Okay, so back to this. So we have this tree right here of widgets, right? So this is an example, right? So what we do is we create a new widget called a column. That widget has two children, right? This text widget called Hello World and this new icon. And so this is what a widget tree looks like, for example, okay? And you might be thinking, well, what about transitions and stuff? Look at this beautiful, very complex transition set. It's like going in different directions simultaneously. All of this is possible with Flutter. Like you can make very complex transitions, which is amazing. It's using Google's internal design format/layout called material design. And oh my God, yes, hot reload, yes. This was a lot of fun. Building with hot reload was awesome because that's one of those things from Flask and from Node that I love, and I always wished that iOS development or Android development had this. So hot reload is just like while you're coding, it's changing as you're coding, which is you don't have to stop, compile, wait, and then you're coding, you make a change, it shows up just like that as you're seeing here. Super awesome. And the last part I want to talk about before we start coding is installing Flutter. Okay, so this Flutter has these packages, these plugins. So for example, let's say I want to integrate payments. So I'll go to the Flutter website, I'll type in payments, okay? And it's got payments from Square, it's got payments from Paytm, it's got payment, Stripe, Razorpay, which is awesome, Stripe and Razorpay, and a bunch of other payments, right? So what you do is you go to one of these plugins and you'll say, how do I install it? And so there are always 3 steps here. Depend on it, so add it to your pubspec.yaml, then run flutter pub get, and then import it into your code. And that's it, 3 steps. This is for all of these plugins. Super cool stuff. And then you can, once you import it, then you can open the dialog, and there you go. There's your modal pop-up, right? Super easy. Now let's get into the code. All right, so how do we install Flutter? So we've got to, there's a couple steps here. Let's go through them. Let's go through these steps together. Let me make this into a new window, and we'll go through this together, okay? So step 1 to install Flutter is to install Android Studio. So we'll go to Android Studio, and we'll install it. So I actually obviously already have Android Studio, but I'm just going there with you to, let's just do this together. Now I will click on download Android Studio. I don't want an extra gig on my hard drive, so I won't actually download it. So just double click on that, download it, and then once it's downloaded, start it up. So let me actually close out Android Studio. Okay, yeah, by the way, I changed my shirt. I was sweating too much. Now it's black, you can't see the sweat. Great. Okay, so I downloaded Android Studio. Now I'm gonna start Android Studio. Okay, once I've started Android Studio, I will open plugin preferences. So I'll go to preferences, go to plugins, browse repositories, select Flutter, and install it right from Android Studio. So that's where you install it, inside of Android Studio. And you might be thinking, well, I wanna do this for iOS, or I wanna do, no. Just do it in Android Studio, okay? So I've already got Flutter, so I'm going to go to preferences, and then I'll go into plugins, and then I will, what's the next step? Settings, plugins, and then Flutter. There we go, there's Flutter. And then, so this is the button right here, install. I've already installed. So you click on install, it'll say yes, install, and then you restart, okay? And when you restart, let's just, let's assume I've restarted, it's gonna be the same screen. Then you can say, okay, so either start a new Flutter project or download an existing Flutter project from the web, and then open it by clicking on open an existing Android Studio project. So let's just start a new Flutter project for this case. Okay, it's a Flutter application, whatever, begin. Creating. Yes, go Flutter. Fly away, Flutter, Flutter. Fly away, my bird. Love you, Flutter. Now, here's a little demo, Flutter demo. So here's what we've got here. Let's just look at this for a second. I've got a class, it extends a stateless widget, okay? So what's happening here is I've got my first class in main.dart. Okay, and so all it's importing is the material design for the buttons and all sorts of those little widgets. So inside of widget build, I'm going to build a single widget, which just shows a title, and it's got this theme, which is the theme of my application. So when I click on run, hopefully this runs with my simulator. So let's see what happens. There we go. Okay, so now it's running. And so if you press the button, it is responding. See, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, great. So how is it doing that? How is it responding? So it's got this counter I see right here, and it's incrementing the counter. So counter plus plus, whenever increment counter is called, which is called where? It's called right here on press. So it's got this floating action button, okay, which is this blue button right here. Makes sense. And it's got a scaffold. So scaffolds allow you to create multiple different widgets. Inside of the scaffold, I've got this attribute, which is text, right? So widget.title is up there. It's got some children, right? So within children, you can have this array of multiple widgets. So the first widget is text. The second one is text. The third one is floating action button. So if we go back here, you'll see this text right up here, this text underneath, which is the scalar value, and then the button. And we can basically just go back and forth. Flutter demo homepage. Where is that? Flutter demo homepage right here. So see, notice this, it's right here. So we can actually create several classes, and we can switch between different classes very easily. I'll show you how to do all that in a second, but this was just how to install Flutter, okay? That's the point of that. All right, let's keep going here. So what's our next step here? We did that part. So we install Flutter, and now we're gonna start building. Let's build that login page. Let's add Firebase to authenticate the user, and then let's build that dashboard page and integrate the payments, and then we'll work on the transfer learning part, right? So where do we even begin with this? Let's think about it for a second. Well, where we should begin is at the hardest part, right? So what would be the hardest to integrate into a mobile app? It seems like PoseNet would be the hardest, right? That's a real-time streaming camera-based model that detects the pose of a user in real time. That sounds difficult, right? Because we have to take a TensorFlow file, convert it into a light file, and then have it inference. And Flutter is a newer framework. TensorFlow is great, but you never know how it's gonna interact with all these different systems. So that's where we'll start. Should we do that ourselves? I hope you said no, because you're getting me, right? You're getting me if you said no. No, we're not going to build this ourselves. We're going to use a base app for this. So I went on Google and I searched for Flutter real-time detection, and I found this great repository. It's got this blog post as well where this developer, what's this person's name? Shachan. And it's got it already embedded into the app. So we can just build off of this app. And not only does it have PoseNet integrated, it's got a bunch of different models integrated, like object detection, a bunch of different convolutional networks, things like that, which is awesome, right? Thank you, Shaq. Love the name. All right, so that's what we'll do. So to install it, we're going to download it. So let's just do this together. We'll download it. And then, so let's close out that previous app that we had. I was just trying to show you what the deal is in terms of how to install and run Flutter. Oh, no. We don't want two of these. And so it's downloading. And so we're going to run those instructions, okay? So Flutter open, okay? And then in terminal, open up a new terminal. Let's make this bigger, big. And then cd into it. Okay, I'm in it. Here we are. ls. By the way, Linux commands are amazing. Okay, so what do we do now? Well, let's type in Flutter. Oh my God, Flutter's not found. Oh, you got to source your bash and stuff here. That's right. Hold on. Okay, make this bigger. And there we are. Okay, so Flutter. Okay, so there's Flutter. Flutter is there. Now we do Flutter packages get, as it says, to install all those packages from the pubspec.yaml file. And let's also open that in Sublime Text so you see what I'm talking about here. In the pubspec.yaml, this is where all those dependencies are. So under dependencies, you list all of those dependencies that you want, okay? So it's got camera, TF Lite, whatever. And so, yeah, great, install those dependencies, now we run it. So Flutter run. Now we could run it from terminal, we could run it using Sublime, but I prefer to run it using Android Studio because I love Android Studio. So let's do that. Okay, so let's see, how do we do this? Android Studio. And then it's called Flutter Real-Time Detection Master 3. So I'll open an existing Android Studio project, and it's called that, and it's right there, and I'll open it just like that. Okay, there we go. Close. So here are the 5 Dart files: bounding box, main, models, and camera, and home. Home is where the heart is. Home is the main one we'll look at. So, okay, so you got a bunch of this stuff. What is happening here is this bounding box code is computing a lot of math to create that bounding box around you whenever it detects you or any sort of object. We don't have to worry about that. Let's X out of that. The camera is opening the camera. It's running whatever model is necessary whenever it's selected. So you can select a different model and it will run it. Makes sense? And lastly, this is the models.dart page. So it's got 4 different models that are there as constant strings that we can use throughout our app. And PoseNet is the one that we want to use. We're going to not worry about the rest. And inside of this homepage state, it's got loading models. It's got building these buttons. As notice, remember, we create these children inside of this widget builder, inside of the scaffold. And then so we create a raise button. We create a bunch of these buttons. Okay, so that's all of that stuff. Now that we have that base model, we're going to modify it by adding a login page, right? So we've already got one screen that is used to detect people with the PoseNet, but now we want to add the login page. So how do we do that? Let's do that right now. Okay, so this is our model right now, right here. As you're seeing it right here, this is what we've got. It's just 4 buttons, as you see right here. It's called SSD MobileNet. So here it is. I can change the text in real time. Siraj. See, notice how it changed right there? See, one of them changed to Siraj. Now I'll change it back to hello, and there's hello. So that's hot reload for you. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a new class just for that login page, okay? So we're gonna call it third route. We'll call it whatever we want, actually. I'll just call it third route because I'll have several routes between different screens, okay? So we'll call it, third route, and then it's gonna extend a stateless widget just like the other classes because, well, it could be a stateful widget, but I'm choosing stateless because I'm just starting. We'll see how it works and then we'll iterate, right? Move fast and iterate. So let's create this widget, and inside this widget, I'm going to have a context. Inside of the context, I am going to say the background color is going to be a certain color. So let's say I want it to be purple. So I'll say color, and then you've got to say 0xFF, and then the hexadecimal code, which is 7F84BE. And that's the background color that I want for this app. And then what I then want is for there to be this contained inside of a scaffold. So inside of this scaffold, that's where I'll have the background color. That's the background color. And then I'll say, what's the body of this scaffold? Well, the body is going to be this model. And inside this model, in the center of this model, I'm going to have a child. The child will have this column widget. And this column will have children. So just write directly down, it's going to have some children. And those children are all widgets. They're of the type widget. And so it's an array. So what's the first one? Well, the first thing I want there to be is, so we're thinking about top down, right? What does it look like top down? If I say, what's the first image that I want? Let's assume that I have this GIF, which, remember that girl? I'll show that GIF, lola.gif. Okay, so that's the first widget. And then I'll say, okay, comma. Now, what's my next widget? My next widget is some text, and let's call her Macy, which is the name of the app. And then what else? You know, I can add attributes as well, like text align, things like that if I wanted to. Text style, text align. Let's say text align is text align.center. A bunch of attributes for each widget. This is what it looks like. And then I'm going to say, what else do we have? What else do we have? What else do we have? We're going to have a text field, or a text form field, right, for the login. So I'll say this is going to be called, the label for this will be username. And then I'll have another text form field called password. This will be password. And it's a string, so password. And this is a string as well, so username. And we can keep going. We'll say, okay, so let's add a button. Let's add a button here for login. It's very like CSS-like. It's very basic. I mean, compared to Objective-C and stuff, this is way better. Like, I'm loving this language. Okay, so then I'll have a button. And so the button will have some text that will say login. Text login. And I can set a color for the button. Let's say deep purple. Accent, this is again material design. And then on pressed, once that button is pressed, remember I'm showing you the gist of the code. Once it's pressed, I'm going to use a navigator, which is a widget. And I'm going to say when that button is pressed, based on this context, use the material page route builder based on the context to take us to the second route. And the second route will be the next page, which is the dashboard. And then I can keep adding buttons. I can fix these as well. Da, 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 da. And once I have that login page, then I can continue to move on. So if I go to Flutter, okay, that's what that looks like. Very basic, all right, login, sign up. We can keep adding to it, right? So I want to show you something. I want to stress something right here. That is that basically you create multiple classes and you can push between the classes using the navigator. So navigator.pop, right? So just like this. On pressed, when a button is pressed, you can pop between the contexts of the different classes. And those classes can extend either stateful or stateless widgets. And that's just how you move about. I've got, one route, two routes, three routes, four routes. And so what I've got here is a Firebase login sign-up code, right? So very simple, cut and paste right here. Just comment this out. But basically, whenever a user clicks the login button and the username and the password field, it's very standard stuff. Like boilerplate, this has been used in thousands of apps. Like very easy stuff. But basically, I went to Firebase and I was like, all right, well, do you guys have a Dart SDK? I mean, I don't know. It turns out, I guess, of course they do, because it's the same company that made Flutter, Google. So that makes it much, much easier, right? So by the way, to install Firebase, here's what I did. So I go to dependencies. So in pubspec.yaml, right? Just like I was saying before, And I said, here it is. So I just typed it in under dev dependencies because I'm in dev mode. I could switch to production, but I'm in dev mode. And then once that's there, I'll do Flutter pub get from terminal. So Flutter pub get, and that will install everything in that file. And once that's done, I can run the app. So that it's very fast, like super fast stuff. So now I've got that login page. I've added Firebase. In terms of integrating payments, what we have to do is we just have to go back to that Flutter page. So what's this payment called? Stripe. Okay, and how do we install that? Well, I'll do that, and then Flutter pub get. Okay, so I'll say there's Stripe. Got it integrated. Now I promised there would be some Razor Pay as well to keep it international because we love everybody here. And there, it's that simple. So now we've got 2 of these dependencies, okay? And then we download them with Flutter pub get at the same time, Okay, great. 1.6 seconds. Now that is fast. Okay, that is super fast. So we've got Razor Pay, we've got Stripe. We can integrate those very easily in the same modal pop-up. We can make our own modal pop-up. Now, what else? What else we got here? Okay, Firebase, now the dashboard. So I really, really hacky. I just put everything in the home.dart file, but you can just, these are class files. This is object-oriented programming, just like Java, just like most programming, it's object-oriented. So what you can do is you can just say file, new, you could say Dart, there we go. And we could say, whatever, dashboard, and then store the class in that, and just say, well, here's that entire class, and then just call it from there, and then import that class from here. So say import dashboard.dart. Remember, I'm trying to give you the start, I'm the catalyst, I'm the espresso for you to get started. This code works, by the way. Just go on GitHub and yeah. Okay, so models.dart, and then you can import it. So for dashboard, again, just very simple stuff. The dashboard is another widget that I created right here. So there's 3 widgets. Kind of get lost sometimes because it's just like embedded within embedded within embedded within embedded widgets. I'm sure there's something like promises in JavaScript where you don't get callback hell. You wouldn't call it callback hell in this case. You'd call it like widget hell, which is going to be a new term now. No, but we want to avoid that kind of direction of just embedded and infinitely. We want to make sure it's like the code looks like this, right? But just create widgets for different pages, link them together with the navigator, and yeah, that's basically it. Okay, so that's the dashboard, Firebase. Now let's get back to PoseNet. We still have I still have to explain how PoseNet works. We got a lot in this video, okay? Now for PoseNet, the way it works is you've got some image, okay? You've got some image right here, and then you feed it into a neural network, like usual, of course. And then what it's going to do is it's going to create 2 vectors. One is for a heat map, and one is for what's called a PAF. It's an affinity field. I'll explain how that works in a second. You take both of these and you compute what's called the line integral that creates a graph. You assign different body parts, different vertices. You connect it all together into a skeleton, merge it, and then that's your result. Let me go through exactly what I'm talking about. There's quite a lot. The dependencies here are knowledge of deep learning, calculus, set theory, and graph theory. Here we go. So what we want is a skeleton of a human, right? That's what we want. So we'll take an image of a human, okay? Let's say this is this sick Pink Floyd picture. Love that. Wish You Were Here album. We'll take a neural network. It was trained on whatever, millions of images of everything, Coco, and the Coco data set. And we'll take 2 of those convolutional blocks from that network, okay? And we're going to feed, one of them we're going to call it the heat map block. The other one, we're going to call it the part affinity field block. Okay, these are collections of matrices. Okay, and what we do is we take our input image and we multiply them by each. Okay, we're multiplying them by each. That's what you're seeing here. And it's going to output 2 different values. The first is a heat map. And what the heat map does, it's a matrix that shows how confident the network is of each body part that it detects. And the parts that are its most most confident in, it's gonna highlight in more. For the part affinity field, it's gonna give you the information about the position and orientation of different pairs. You've got body parts and then you've got pairs, which is connecting those parts together. And this tells you which direction each part is moving in terms of likelihood, right? So it kind of gives a radius, a bounding box, if you will, around each body part. And so the code looks like this, right? We take an existing network, we feed the image into both of those layers, get back those two matrices, and now using these matrices, we'll hold on to that affinity field for a second. We'll not worry about that. We're focused now on the heat map. What we're gonna do is we're gonna detect parts of the image by extracting the locations out of the heat map. So we'll start with the first pixel, surround it with the window, find the max value from that, and those are the values that we'll use. Then we'll connect those body parts by creating a bipartite graph. So for all of those coordinates, those XY coordinates, link them together and create a graph out of them. That's graph theory. So everything is now connected, but it's too many connections. The head is connected to the foot, which is connected to the arm, and but it should be. Everything shouldn't be connected, right? This is just a very bare bone. Everything is connected first graph that we're gonna prune. So now we're going to score each of those connections using what's called the line integral. Okay, that's calculus. And so this is what it looks like. Basically, we're performing a matrix multiplication operation to create this weighted bipartite graph, which scores all of those parts that connect vertices for your skeleton, and it's going to weight which is the most likely to be the real one based on that heat map score. And Khan Academy has a great explainer video on that. Okay, so that's what it's doing. Then it's going to maximize the total score using that bipartite graph by sorting them in order of the confidence. And so that is the assignment algorithm. And you can see the code for that there. Then it's going to merge those detected connections into one single skeleton. And so we could think of this as a collection of humans that could be in the image. It's going to say if this body part looks like it's connected to the same human, then make it a part of the same human. But if these two body parts, if one looks like it belongs to one human and another looks like it belongs to another human based on distance, don't connect them. Okay, so that's kind of the mathematical way of thinking about this. And so the last step is that merging step. Okay, so that's quite a lot to cover in a short amount of time, but I want to give you a high-level overview of PoseNet, right? So literally the only learning happening in PoseNet is to first take a pre-trained model, take out those trained layers, and create a heat map and a affinity field for an image, and then you're performing not machine learning, but a bunch of static algorithms like assignment or merging or sorting, things like that. This is all happening in real time as it's detecting you. Okay, more information is going to be in this document that I've created inside of the code repository on GitHub. Look at it, okay? It'll compile in your browser. Now, for transfer learning, what we could do is we have a couple strategies, but the strategy that I like the most is to take an existing convolutional network, which we have, and retrain. A convolutional network contains many layers. Let's say 10. We'll take those top 3 layers and retrain those on yoga poses, but keep the rest of those frozen. Why? Because we want to benefit from the skills that it's learned from detecting all sorts of things, humans, cars, dogs, shapes, because overall it's going to make our prediction task better. So we'll freeze those, but we'll retrain those top layers for yoga. So you might be thinking, well, how do we do this? How do we get the yoga images? Where are we going to find all this stuff? Again, GitHub, so much uncaptured value on this website. Okay, this person created, what's this person's name? Smells Like ML, great name. Smells Like ML made this app called Yoga AI, and it's using a convolutional pose machine model. They already retrained it on a bunch of, they've even got this Hackster pose. They've already retrained it on a bunch of yoga images, which you can find here. And we can find the models pre-trained right here as a TF-Lite file. Now, if we go back to our Dart code, here are the TF-Lite files. Okay, so we just have to replace it with our yoganet.tflite file. Okay, and then we'll place it into our assets right here are all the YogaNet. So we'll download it and place it in our assets. And there we go. We got YogaNet running in our model. We took two different repositories and combined them together. Now, after we've integrated that model into our app, we want to integrate text to speech. So how are we going to do that? Well, we'll go back to this and we'll say text to speech. Do we have any plugins for that? Yes, we got two. So we'll go right here. And how does this work? So once we install it, let's go to the GitHub repository. And it doesn't look like it has that much documentation. So next, how about this one? TTS example. Ooh. Okay, so we create a text-to-speech object, and then we just say speak. That's easy. Hello world, just like that. Great. And so here's how it works. Once I've added it to my pubspec.yaml, Flutter text-to-speech. There it is. Then I will go to home. Then I will say right here, TTS, speak hello world, and then, you can delay it by a certain number of seconds. Okay, so just like that. So what happens is whenever it detects a pose, whenever it detects any pose, it will speak, it will say something. So it'll say, good job, hold that pose, okay? So if the pose is detected, it's getting this real-time stream, say, good job, hold that pose. And so we'll have a timer and we'll say, after say 5 minutes or some threshold, go to the next pose. And then it will start listening. So we'll create another event listener for the next pose. And so we'll create different event listeners for all those different poses for as many as we want, let's say 10 for a session. And it's going to be, guided by this voice, which is our assistant, Macy. And so it's a text-to-speech engine responding to the stream coming from this PoseNet model happening in real time. And because we can put these together in a graceful way, we can anthropomorphize our app and make it, a user feel, happier, more peaceful. Their lives are more meaningful. Their yoga practice doesn't cost as much because it's cheaper than a human, and they can do it anywhere, at any time. Put the phone against the wall and start, moving and stuff. So that's the next step, and that's it for this demo video. Now, how to improve this app? There's a lot we could do to improve this app. Okay, this is just the beginning. First of all, we can create a generative model to create a 3D yoga instructor in real time. We can add augmented reality, so this person could be right next to us. We can add more personalization, more poses, more interactive dialogue that is responding to the user with more intelligence. We can add other features, other sensors for your diet and things like that. More analytics. There's a lot we could do, but this is a first bare bones app. I hope you found this video useful, and please subscribe for more programming videos. For now, I'm going to learn more about Flutter. So, thanks for watching.